Hey everybody, it's Mike from Fieldcraft Survival. Hey, I'm doing something new. I'm trying something new, which is me communicating to you in a one-way conversation where you could relay all your opinions and all your comments and all your feedback via the comments, but I'm not having any hype injected or embedded in these videos, meaning no running and gunning, no high-speed video, no graphics, no aesthetics, no sexy anything, just me communicating to you. If you want to give us feedback, please feel free to comment. Please feel free to engage. This is all about education. It's all about conversation. It's all about engagement. And I'll be providing these pro tips on what I think is important in situational awareness and survival preparedness. Look, as a company, my mission statement has always been I want to engage with people who aren't interested in survival and have them think about the way that they look at their modern survival in their life. And if they improve anything, they don't have to buy anything from us. If they improve anything in their life, or we've provided a sliver of information that benefits them, then that's all good for us. So look, if you guys don't know who we are, my name is Mike Glover. I started Fieldcraft Survival after a long career in special operations, specifically the Green Berets and Special Forces, working from E1 in the infantry, meaning private, all the way up to Sergeant Major, or E9, in a long career. After I got out, I transitioned into the National Guard, which is the reserve component of Special Forces. And then I did government contracting with the U.S. government for a government organization specializing in intelligence, which if you track the intelligence community, there's 17 organizations. You could take your pick. It might be even more today. But I want to let you know that because I have a lot of experience working in austere environments and preparing myself and my teammates and my team for the worst possible scenarios and situations across the world, whether it's in war, semi-permissive environments, which are kind of war zones, and unstable governments and environments. I have experience, and if I don't have the knowledge or expertise, I have a lot of great people around me that are resources for that information. Today, we're going to talk to you about situational awareness. If you talk about situational awareness with most organizations and institutions that work in the realm of being situationally aware, you'll start to realize that there's not a lot of good information on how situational awareness works. Because, the world that we live in now, because we are free, I want you to understand that this is the best time to be a human being in the United States of America specifically than any other time in history. We're free. We live in a world saturated with technology, which is affording us the ability to connect with people, to resource information, to hold each other accountable. It is a great time to be alive. If you look at poverty statistics, even violent crime statistics and murder, everything is better now than it has ever been. The job rate is better. There's a whole bunch of instances that are better for us as Americans in a free society. With that freedom comes some compromise. With that freedom comes some bad things. For example, we are more complacent, I think, than we've ever been in human history. The reason we are is because we are tuned in to our cell phones. Like even you now might be watching this on a cell phone. We are tuned into our cell phones for information, for entertainment, for advice, self-help, education. The list goes on and on. And what happens when we get narrowly focused on that cell phone? We forget the world around us. Also, in addition to that, we pay less attention to the things that we once saw as important because they're not necessarily a priority. Like I talk about often, I talk about the statistical probability of accidents. It is more likely 100 times over that you're going to get in an accident than you're going to be in a mass shooting. Mass shootings are very rare. But if you watch the media, they would spin you up and think it's epidemic, that it's out of control. But that's not the case. But how often do we prepare for an accident versus preparing maybe for a gunfight? I mean, how often do we look at people shooting guns in videos and think it's the coolest thing ever and that we want to be like that? But we do this preparation phase of getting equipment and doing training, neglecting the things that are statistically more likely to happen, like a vehicle accident. Like how many of you guys and gals have tourniquets in your vehicle? How many of you guys and gals have medical kits in your home? It's probably on the lower end of the spectrum. So when I talk about the things that I'm talking about, I want you to understand that I'm coming from that optic that is studying statistics, studying survival, really studying the reason people live versus the reason people die. And so I want to provide that education and that resource for you. Situational awareness is really important. The first time I learned situational awareness was in observation as a sniper in special forces. When I became a sniper, I started to realize that it wasn't about running and gunning. In fact, 99% of the job was what you did behind a spotting scope or what you did behind observation and reconnaissance. It didn't have a lot to do with shooting. Shooting was the easy part. Like when you had to shoot your long gun, that was really easy. What was more difficult was realizing that you had to be really disciplined to be consciously aware, which means being situationally aware. And so when I started growing up in the sniper community, when I started teaching my guys, I actually created blocks of instruction where I would teach my guys situational awareness. And it started with conscious observation. Let me give you an example. Say you pick up a pair of binos and you look through those binos and you scan a ridgeline or you scan an area that you might be hunting. When you scan that area, think about how much information you actually see and that you take into your brain. A lot of us look, but we don't observe. And that's the difference. Scanning with your eyes and taking information consciously is a deliberate act. You actually have to be turned on. The best example I can give you, because most of you men and women drive to and from work, is how often do you drive and get to your destination and reflect on your drive? Think about your drive this morning or this afternoon. What did you observe? Do you even remember your drive? Most of the time it's no. You don't remember your drive because you're not consciously taking in information. You're kind of running on autopilot. And that's what happens in our everyday lives. And now you integrate technology, a piece of equipment, and you go to a restaurant and you're sitting down with your spouse and you're engaging in conversation. How often are you narrowly focused on something or somebody and then you forget what's around you? And that's the first lesson to understand when you want to be better at being better situationally aware. Is when you go into an unknown environment, you have to take deliberate input of that environment consciously in order to get situationally aware and observe. So here's a good tactic. When you go into an unknown situation, stay switched on. You might be engaging with somebody. Let's say you're going into a restaurant and you're conversing with somebody that's standing next to you. Let me educate you real quick on a neurological process. There's something called tidbits, and this isn't a scientific name or scientific verbiage, but this is the way to understand how your brain works in neurological processes. So let's say you're in a conversation with somebody. You have a set capacity from left to right on the spectrum that's, let's call it 100%. When you're communicating to somebody using trillions of those synapses and processes, you are using about 60% of your set capacity. So let's say you have, like on a video game, you have a bar. You're using 60% of that bar in just that engagement. That means you have 40% freed up to be situationally aware. That means when you're conversing with somebody and you're tuned into them and you're watching behavioral dynamics, you're watching body language, you're looking at their lips, you're looking at their eyes, you're looking at their hands, but also you're listening to their information and you're creating assumptions and creating answers to their questions. That's 60% of your capacity. That 40% is segmented and freed up so you could better understand what's happening around you. And so if you have 40% freed up, imagine that's the reason why you could observe people coming through a door or you could hear conversations in the background. So now, let's say you're walking into an unknown situation. Let's say you're walking into a restaurant and you're conversing with that person. You have 40% of your situational awareness freed up in order to observe. So that could be a huge disadvantage. And it changes, right? Your capacity shifts depending on really the situation that you're in. Let's say somebody is in a shooting in that restaurant. Think about your situational awareness. Think about your capacity and how much it's suppressed. That's why people under stress make bad decisions. It's not because they're incompetent or they're stupid. It's because they're not trained or prepared. And so their capacity is being peaked or maximized. And so they don't have the ability to make good decisions because they're hitting the red line. So I want you to think about that. If you go into a situation that's unknown, let's say you go into that restaurant and you're conversing with somebody. Maybe when you go in, you tune them out for a period of time. And some of you guys are very good, or some of you girls are very good at tuning people out. You're like shaking your head. You're like, yeah. And they're like, did you hear what I said? You're like, I have no idea what you said. When you're tuning somebody out, it's because your focus is changing. Your consciousness is trying to extract information from something else. It might be something in your head, or it might be something that you observe. So when you go into an unknown situation like that restaurant, I want you to tune whoever that is out, because I want you to collect information on the people and the environment that you're going into. So when you see people, I want you to go, oh, I know who that is. I see their body language. I see hands, safe. Hands safe, hands safe, and scan the room, but take in the information. And when you go into that room, look for an advantage, typically in the back of the room, typically by the trash can, typically by the back exit, where you could have an advantageous position to observe. Because if you put your back against the door, some people look at that as paranoia. Like if you go into a situation, they're like, why are you being paranoid? It's not paranoia, it's preparedness. Remember, preparedness is freedom. If you're prepared, you're better off. So if you train yourself to do these deliberate acts, you'll do it naturally on autopilot. So you can have a conversation, and then you can observe, analyze, take in information, and make good decisions. So now you go into a room, and there's a lot of people. There's a large crowd. Well, I want to be close to the exit. So I turn my back. I'm able to observe and scan everybody who's coming in, but I'm also in a position to be able to take that rear exit. You want to set yourself up for success in every microcosm of your life. It could even be how you sit in your car, how you position your concealed carry, how you put your hands on your steering wheel, how you put your tourniquet placed in your vehicle. All these things matter, but they require deliberate observation and deliberate decision making. Set yourself up for success. One of the ways that I've learned this process is in observation in a optic when I'm scanning for bad guys. Let's say I'm scanning for bad guys and I'm looking at, through that objective lens, I'm looking at the side of a ridgeline and it covers a certain amount of distance, right? All that information is a lot of information. If I just look at that, I won't be able to consciously take that information in. But if I formulate a plan, let's say I cut it into grids, I could go alpha 1, bottom left corner, alpha 2, middle bottom, alpha 3, bottom right. Now I could quadrant that and scan individual quadrants and take in that information a little bit at a time. Or I could use a scanning method where I'm scanning from bottom to top, snaking all the way from left to right. Or I can go up and down. But it's a deliberate methodology and practice that you could apply to your everyday life. So often in the world that we live in the freedom that we live in, we neglect these things. I want you to think about all the things that you do on a daily basis and how much information you're really taking in. I mean, we don't have attention spans. If you've hung in for 13 minutes and 35 seconds with me now, you should be given an award. Because we don't have attention spans. I mean, there's an optimal YouTube window and it's like 4 minutes because we can't pay attention for more than 4 minutes. Think about that as it applies to your life, as it applies to how you observe and take in information, and really how it translates into how you're going to be better prepared and how you're going to be set up for success when shit hits the fan. Because things will hit the fan. Things will happen. I promise you, if you narrowly focus your attention and you segment more to the reality that you live in, less to the technology that you're saturated in, you'll be better off for it. I hope that's helped you guys out. Until next time, stay alert, stay alive. Fieldcraftsurvival.com. This is Mike. I appreciate your time, man. Until next time.